let's get into it. Soul Not For Sale podcast. Coach Colin here. The Aliens Enemy Act has been invoked by Donald Trump. He is taking a new measure, a more aggressive measure in his pursuit of mass deportation. He has not forgotten that he has promised his voters that he was going to implement mass deportation. Now, with the Alien Enemies Act, he has sent these people to an Salvadorian prison. It is a wild place. Now, the thing about it is Joe Rogan's a little bit confused on this whole thing. And I'm going to show you what he's missing. And I think one of the key things is language. I think he's gotten swept away by the language that's being used. And I think he might have forgot what was going on during the Biden administration. I'm going to be showing you what I'm exactly talking about. And then we're also going to explore the case. Because right now, the struggle in the mainstream media, the Trump administration is Donald Trump allowed to put this act to use? They say it's a wartime act. They say it's not wartime. They say he can't do it. We're going to explore all that. But the place that he put these guys is here.
I can tell you this, these were bad people. So that was a bad group of, as I say, comrades.
No entiendo por qué los trasladaron allá, con tatuaje, sin tatuaje, con récord o sin récord.
We do not think the Alien Enemies Act can be used at all. It cannot be used during peacetime.
The White House facing major legal fallout. President Trump invoking a rare wartime authority known as the Alien Enemies Act. More than 200 migrants deported, the administration claiming some belong to the Venezuelan gang Tren de Aragua.
I would caution people to be very careful about accepting at face value the Trump administration's characterization of all these people. We just saw that with Guantanamo, that the administration overstated who the individuals were. They said they were the worst of the worst. And then it turned out, no, some of them didn't even have criminal convictions at all.
A federal...
I want you to remember that. Didn't have any convictions at all. Because that seems to be where people are in the language. There are people who are the worst of the worst and they're gang members. And there's people who don't have any criminal record whatsoever. Now, I'm going to jump over to the Joe Rogan clip, and then we're going to discuss that little tidbit I said about language a little further. But let's start with this.
Go pills? Is that what they give to fighter pilots?
Yeah, they give them something. British Army's pill number 9. What's that? Pill number 9 was just a strong laxative. This is AI. Lies. What was in there? Specific medication used by British Army during World War I. Primary ingredient, pill number 9, was calomel, mercurious chloride, a mercury-based compound used to treat intestinal infections and other ailments. Oh, okay. Just massive diarrhea pills.
I don't know how that's a performance enhancer.
Yeah, I don't think it is.
If your stomach, maybe just clear it out. Feel light on your feet. I don't know.
It seems like the coke would be more effective to...
I mean, it'll make you go to the bathroom as well. So
for accomplish our goals.
Yeah. You know, you said before about sort of that self-authoring thing, like taking control of my own life. My friend George has got this great question where he says, you're stuck in a third world prison and you get one phone call to ring somebody to get you out. Who'd you ring? And that idea I love because it helps you to identify who the highest agency person is in your life. Who is it that can think on their feet, that doesn't need permission to go and do anything, that'll overcome obstacles, that is this sort of permissionless reality bender.
Right.
Who would you call?
I don't know, man. That's a good question. That's a really good question. I'd have to really think about it. Also, I don't know anybody's number.
That's true. Yeah,
That's
I guess,
a problem.
Can I Instagram DM them? Is that all right? Can I log in? Actually, can you give me my phone? Because I got 2-factor authentication on. This is going to be really awkward. Is that all right? I need to do that. Yeah, I mean, I would be tempted to ring Tim Kennedy. I think he would probably be quite high up on my list.
Yeah, he would help you a lot.
If I had access to my phone.
Yeah, dirty deeds done dirt cheap.
Correct. Yeah. I mean, it might be a bit gratuitous. I get the sense that he would take more pleasure in getting me out than would be necessary. You know what I mean?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know, man. That's got to be the worst place to be in the world. Foreign prison with no way to call somebody. Whew. You know, this is the criticism about these illegal aliens that have been shipped off to, what is it, El Salvador? Is it El Salvador that they have the super prisons?
Yeah, I think we spoke about this last time. That was just as they'd been created, these football stadium-sized monstrosities.
They essentially got all the gang members off the streets and locked them up and dropped crime radically, dropped violence radically. They essentially said, enough of this. We're just going to go after all these gang members and lock them all up. And the criticism about these deportees that we're sending people over there, we're sending plane loads of people over there, like, what if you're in that group and you're not guilty of anything? What if you're just a guy who came over here from Mexico and you're a tattoo artist? U.S. deports 250 alleged gang members to El Salvador despite court ruling to halt flights. Yeah, there's a court ruling to halt the flights. But here's the thing. If they are gang members, if they are Tren de Aragua or those gang members that took over, if that's real, then this all makes sense. But the fear is that there's going to be certain people that are rounded up in this that are not guilty.
Collateral damage.
Right. And then these poor people are going to be trapped in this El Salvador prison, and no one's going to believe them that they're innocent.
It says it all that El Salvador has got a reputation for being so good at prison and law enforcement that they're importing people over there. Mm-hmm. It's like, we need to, you said before, if I've got a bad knee, I want to go to the guy that looks after the Lakers. It's like, you're the Lakers PT doc of the rehabilitation world. It's not even rehabilitation, I suppose, just incarceration world. Yeah,
it's just incarceration, and there's probably a financial incentive. We probably pay them to house these prisoners. But the question is, are we sure? Like, how many of these people are being accused of being gang members because maybe they tattoo gang members? Maybe they were caught up in a raid, and maybe they are
friends of gang members.
Maybe they're just an artist who happens to be an illegal, or maybe they're someone who's working on a construction site and they get rounded up and they get shipped over there. That's a legitimate question. When you're arresting people and prosecuting people, and your goal is to arrest people and prosecute people, you do your best at that. And the question is, how many people get arrested and prosecuted that are innocent? Well, in the real world, what we know is quite a few. I mean, I do a lot of podcasts with my good friend Josh Dubin, who's spent a considerable amount of his life helping innocent people get out of jail. That's his main thing that he does, is work with unjustly prosecuted people. And you find the levels of corruption to be horrific. The prosecutors, DAs, the amount of corrupt judges, it's shocking. It's shocking when you lay the facts of these cases out, like the Ohio 4. These people that were in jail, proven that one of them could not have possibly been there when the crime was committed and still was in there for 30 years. The actual guy who was the informant came out and said that he was told to say all these things. It's all lies. Then was told when they were going to bring it to trial again, you will be arrested for telling lies now. You will either be arrested because you're lying now, or you'll be arrested for telling lies previously. So he won't.
This is like that thing, if she sinks, she's not a witch, and if she floats, she is.
Right. Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. And then there's the game aspect of it. The game aspect of it is victory, right? If you're a prosecutor, your job is to arrest people and prosecute them and convict them. That's your job. That's what your self-worth, who you are as a prosecutor, your reputation is based on success.
Yeah, your record, your perfect record of this many convictions.
Yeah, it's the same with cops. Unfortunately, a lot of cops are their whole thing is making arrests.
It's a shame, isn't it? You talked about the fire service earlier on. 3 emergency services: fire, police, and ambulance. When the fire service turns up anywhere, I don't think that there's any issues. I don't know how often firefighters find themselves up against a crowd that's unhappy. Maybe, I guess, if it was a riot of some kind, perhaps. Yeah. But for the most part, it's a hero that's coming to save the cat stuck in a tree, the house that's on fire, the baby that's upstairs. Yeah. Like, hooray, well done for you.
Yeah.
A medical service turns up. Somebody's really badly hurt, or somebody's broken. Some kid at a sports match has broken their leg. Thank you so much. Please look after them. And then the police turn up, and the reaction could not be more different.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I understand that there's a particular type of control that cops have, that sort of firefighters and EMTs. Firefighters and EMTs are doing stuff exclusively sort of in service of others, whereas cops are doing something that sort of subtracts away. But it must be tough. Like, if you're a good cop, especially now, especially after the last few years, It must be hard because you want to feel proud about your job.
It's unbelievably hard. It's also very hard to get people that are good people to sign up.
I was just looking at the timestamp that I had here, and I was like, wait, why did I keep it going? It's interesting that he says cops have something that minuses away. That's not really true. They're doing what they're doing in service of others as well. If they get somebody off the street, that helps a community. If they remove an abusive husband from a household or vice versa, then they're helping. You know what I mean? It's not exactly subtracting, but I could see how today somebody could think that because we've been pushed that on us so much. You know, I have a in-law, I guess, indirect family member who's a cop, and there's nothing he's doing that's minusing away. He's completely adding to the community that he is in, and he's a detective now, and he's caught serial killers. I mean, there's no minus there. He's a plus in his community as far as I'm concerned. Now, very interesting. First question, a little off topic. Who would you call? Who would you call in that instance? I would call my buddy Mike. That's who I would call 100% because he can just get things done somehow. But interesting that this Chris guy knows Tim Kennedy. I always find it so interesting when these podcasters have these connections to these military people, and it's just so like, everybody has a podcast, so everybody just hangs out, Is it kind of like when you work at the mall, all of a sudden people that work in the mall become your friends? Is that kind of the thing? Or is there something else going on there? My tinfoil Speedo crinkles a little bit towards it's something else. But that's just me. Now, going back to language, see how Joe Rogan's talking about what if it's just a tattoo artist? What if that guy gets rounded up and he's innocent? What if they get arrested? What if these rounded up people get arrested? Here's the thing that you're not going to hear much in the mainstream media as I go through these clips. These people are still illegal immigrants. So he's saying, what if they're innocent? Well, they're not innocent. Again, we're just going based on language. They're all illegal immigrants. Some of them are gang affiliated, some are not. But all have been put within this mandate that has been put upon President Trump and Tom Homan to remove all of the illegal aliens. So you're going to hear that more and more as you hear about this case. But the thing about it is, the language is where people get all gummed up, right? Like, oh man, they're in this place. I mean, it's just, this is not fair. You got to think about it. Just think about that. I'm going to show you a little bit more of the prison afterwards. This is Pam Bondi discussing this exact situation. Again, there has been a judge who has blocked President Trump from doing this. This is actually the guy right here. Some people are comparing him to this judge. If you know about Brazil, you know about this guy, and he's just a little drunk on power, if I say so myself. And they're kind of saying the same thing about this judge because they feel like he shouldn't have the right to stop Donald Trump. Pam Bondi feels the same way. Listen to this.
This is an out-of-control judge, a federal judge trying to control our entire foreign policy, and he cannot do it. He dragged us into court on a Saturday without any notice, and then he's continuing these hearings. He's trying to ask us about national security information, which he is absolutely not entitled to. We are appealing. We will be in court Monday. Again, we will win. We will prevail. There are 261 reasons why Americans are safer today, and that's because those people are now in an El Salvador prison. And we are going to follow the law, and we are going to protect Americans. There's a reason why Biden's approval rating was plummeting because of the border. There's a reason why the current Democrats' approval rating is at 29%. People want to be safe. This is President Trump's agenda to keep Americans safe, Maria. It's basic public safety. Get these people out of our country as fast as we can. They're not immigrants. They're illegal aliens who are committing the most violent crimes you can imagine on Americans. Murder, ask the parents of all of these young women who have been violently. And we are going to continue to make America safe again because that's President Trump's agenda.
Yeah.
See, again, you know, she kind of sees through, of course, because, you know, she's in the Trump administration. She has to see through it, but she sees through the language. She's like, these people are illegal aliens. And if you notice, she said something which has been something that Trump has been talking about this whole time. Get these people out as fast as possible, right? Now, what they're trying to do is connect all of them to very violent crime. That's not the case, but again, she brings up Laken Riley's family. You can't argue that there are violent crimes being committed by these people. Now, the odds that it's all of them, you're not going to win those odds, because a lot of people are speculating it's anywhere from 13 million to 20 million people who came in under former President Biden. So we just can't possibly say that they're all bad people. They can't all be, secret soldiers. They can't all be drug dealers. They can't all be cartel members. Just the odds alone, right? But I'm sure have seen, if you watch this channel, you've probably seen time after time these violent crimes that have been taking place. You don't have to watch this channel. You can watch Fox. You can watch basically anybody who's covering what's going on or what has been going on through Biden's administration. Many violent acts, right? But what they're trying to do right now is they're trying to connect all of them to those violent acts. What's really happening here, when you really break it down, and also let me show you who this judge is actually. What's really happening when you break it all down is that the Biden administration wanted to bring in as many people as possible. And that was their game. And now Trump's game is just that in reverse. It's the opposite. All those people you brought in, I want them out. Biden, he was doing everything he could when Greg Abbott said, I'm going to stop the flow with shipping containers and barbed wire and all this stuff. Biden was like, they literally said the words, open up the flow. We want you to open up the flow again. What? Why? Open it up. We didn't say you could do that. You can't do that. And it almost came to that clash, everybody remembers. It was crazy. So that was Biden's game. No, the law says this and the law says that. No. These people, these are asylum seekers. These people are fine. Let them all in here. Now we're going the other way. Need these people out. They're not asylum seekers. They're violent criminals. It's the game in the other way. So now Biden had the law on his side. Now Trump's like, I have the law on my side. And now, of course, there was people, senators who were standing up for not having the border be open. And now there's judges who are actually contemplating the idea of bringing those violent criminals back into the country and possibly just dispersing them once again. Especially the ones that are confirmed gang members. It's kind of crazy. When you look into who this judge is, though, kind of makes sense. Somebody says, what the F? This judge, activist judge, blocking Trump from deporting violent gang members, intentionally delayed the release of Hillary Clinton's emails back in 2016. He's also coincidentally presiding over the Signal case. So again, it starts to all unfold. You start to go, oh, this guy's one of those guys. That's why President Trump actually compared this guy to this judge, to the same judge that he had presiding over his case when it came to his New York case. It was the same type of guy. It's just coincidental that you happen to be one of these people who has a BC connection. It's just, it all just starts to unfold. Again, this is just a big game that they're playing. And all they're doing right now on the left is saying, we are going to keep these people by any means necessary. They're doing whatever they can. Let's get a little bit into the whole legalese, I guess you could call it, of this story, though. Let's go.
First, deportation flights to Venezuela.
Of course, that's how fast I have it. Of course, it's double speed. Let's go.
Resumed this weekend. Some of them included alleged Tren de Aragua gang members. And in a few hours, the Trump administration will be in court. They'll argue against a federal judge's decision to temporarily block their use of the Alien Enemies Act. The administration used the 1798 law to quickly deport alleged gang members without due process.
I gotta say, just look at these guys walking in. I don't think they know what's going on. They're walking like they're going somewhere great. I don't know. I don't think they realize what's happening.
was. Just this weekend on Face the Nation, White House National Security Advisor Mike Waltz defended its use.
We are saying that TDA is acting as a proxy of the Maduro regime. This is how the Alien and Sedition Act applies. And we cannot have district judges interfering with the commander-in-chief's actions to take care of, in the way he deems necessary, a terrorist organization.
Now, last night, President Trump took to social media once again. He called out Judge James Boasberg, who blocked his administration from using the law to conduct deportations. Trump compared him to the judge who presided over his New York fraud trial and called for his disbarment. And we are staying on top of this.
Of course she's not going to read it. Read what he said. He's the president. This judge is almost as conflicted, actually it's not even close, as the judge whose daughter made millions representing Biden-Harris against me, while her father presided over the case against me and refused to recuse himself. He should be disbarred. Crooked Alan Bragg was the DA on this case. Do you believe that guy hanging out with Sheldon Johnson? Saw him on JRE, cut someone's head off, I heard. Crazy stuff. They put me under a gag order so I could not talk about it. Miscarriage of justice, okay? I'm just saying here.
Disbarment. And we are staying on top of this story with CBS News White House reporter Willie James Inman and CBS News Department of Justice reporter Jake Rosen. First, though, let's bring Willie in for more on the president's response to this case. Willie, thanks for joining us today on a Monday. We are seeing Trump continuing to ramp up his attacks on the judiciary. So what more can you tell us about that?
Hey there, Mugo. Good to be with you, and good morning to you. Well, that's certainly right. That's what we've seen from President Trump via social media, as he posted yesterday on Truth Social, blasting this judge that is overseeing this case related to deportations of alleged Venezuelan gang members. Now, CBS News has reported that some of these individuals do not have criminal records, and some of these individuals were, in fact, didn't necessarily have the due process to see a judge in terms of their deportation. But the White House...
See the language. You're going to hear it more and more. These guys didn't have criminal records. But Trump is not looking, truthfully, I mean, right now, yeah, they're focused on that gang, MS-13, Tren de Agua. Yeah, they're focused on them. But their mandate is to get rid of all of them. And as he keeps bringing up, you're going to keep hearing it, they don't have criminal records. They're still in the country illegally. And as Tom Homan has said many times, he's like, yeah, we're going to go after the criminals first, of course. He's like, but also keep in mind, everyone who entered the country illegally is a criminal. And he states the code. He always states the code every time. He's like, code 3, section 3. Like he goes through the whole thing. So they keep on with this type of language, and it kind of confuses people. And it makes you think, is this guy an authoritarian? This Trump? Is he like, what's going on here? Is he no due process? But again, when it comes to that law, we're going to get into that closer to the end, because a lot of people are conflicted on whether or not he's allowed to do this. And the only reason they're conflicted is because of the media. I'm going to give this like 30 more seconds. I'm going to jump over to another video.
Nonetheless, pushing back against judges. This isn't the first time that we've seen President Trump do this. Of course, he himself has had to deal with the court of law over the past several years. But the White House officials, the White House press secretary, in fact, calling some of these judges activist judges, and President Trump pushing for this specific judge in this case to be removed. And this is certainly something that we've seen ramp up over the past couple of weeks as his agenda has really been thwarted by federal judges across the nation, Mugo.
Okay, Willie, thank you. Now let's go to CBS News Department of Justice reporter Jake Rosen for more on today's hearing. And Jake, what kind of arguments are we expecting today?
Right. Well, the Trump administration has argued since the first hearing, which was over a week ago now, that Judge James Boasberg, who Willie just spoke about, had no authority to even put a temporary block because they believe that the Trump administration's invocation of the Alien Enemies Act is unreviewable, which means that the executive has the authority to do what it pleases with invoking that as to any group of people that it wants to, and that there is no authority for the judge to even have done that in the first place, let alone the decisions that he's made, which broadened and blocked the deportation from just the first 5 plaintiffs to the entire class of people who fit under this invocation of that law. Now,
see, that's the thing, right? A lot of people are arguing, Trump administration is arguing he didn't even have the right to do this. He didn't have the right to actually put this block in place. It's very interesting how you know what the law is. This law, it's from 1798. So people are well familiar with this law. Yeah, if you're not, the Aliens Enemy Act, it's an act where you can actually focus on people who, I'll use today's examples instead of what they did in the past, people who do not love America. You could focus on people who hate America, and you can say those people have to go. You could focus on one nation that you're at war with and say those people have to go. It's an enemies act. So whoever the enemy is, but abroad, the people who are in the nation that fall under that have to go. There's no due process. You just go back. So that's a big argument that's happening here. Let's hear a little more of this from just a day ago, because this has been developing pretty much all week, pretty much for the past 2 weeks, I would say.
A different story here. The legal fight over the Trump administration's deportation of Venezuelan migrants to El Salvador continues to play out in a D.C. appeals court. Today is the deadline for the Justice Department to explain to Judge James Boasberg why and how they failed to follow his orders that temporarily blocked such deportations. Trump officials argue that their use of the Alien Enemies Act targets gang members, and that is why the Justice Department is trying to get Boasberg's decision overturned. So let's bring in CBS News Department of Justice reporter Jake Rosen, who's been following this story for us. Jake, good to see you today. What are the chances that Judge Boasberg will get all of his questions answered?
Almost zero, and that's because last night the Department of Justice and the executive branch decided to invoke the state secret privilege, which means that they're invoking national security reasons and national security secrets for why they will not disclose any answers to Judge Boasberg's questions. The only thing that the government has put so far in the record of this court.
Notice when I say language, right? So they haven't stated that. He's 100% right, and the judge is not going to get too many answers. In my view, and I'll explain that as we go, I don't believe that the judge deserves these answers, and I don't even really understand how it's coming to this point where they have to debate with this judge, but I guess they do. But also notice the imaging that they keep on showing you. They keep on showing you the worst of the worst imaging throughout this entire thing. Now, what I do want to show you before I go to this part with Tom Homan is exactly what this place is. So just check this out. This is a very interesting take. You know, not often CNN actually does some good work here, but they did in this instance. So I'm going to show you 2 clips that just give you a good familiarity with this place.
These men described as the worst of the worst, tattooed with reminders of El Salvador's dark past. It's tense and uncomfortable. But here, officials say comfort isn't meant to exist.
There's no mattresses, there's no sheets. You've got a toilet over here for them to go to the bathroom. You've got this basin here that they use to bathe themselves. And then you can see there's a barrel of water that they can drink from.
This is a rare look inside El Salvador's terrorism confinement center, known as SECOT.
And he says there's always somebody standing here in front of the cells. And then if you look up, there's another corridor with more security personnel. Luz 24 horas. 24/7 light.
The prison sits like an isolated fortress, nestled in mountainous terrain, about an hour-and-a-half drive from the capital. Even with government officials on board with us, we're stopped a mile out.
So, you can see there, 24-hour light. The place is absolutely massive. You know, the guys, there's no comfort to be had. There's no pillows. There's no blankets. I think they get one small blanket, but you're just chucked in there. You're just washing yourself right there in front of everybody. That is what they're doing. Now, the reason that El Salvador has taken such a radical step in this direction is because those same people that you saw in the cells kind of had the country hostage at a certain point. El Salvador is safe today, but it was not safe when all those people were out on the loose. So here's another clip. And this is going to feed into what you're hearing about, Joe Rogan saying, what if they're innocent? What if this? What if that?
Any suspected criminal elements.
Late last week, as the U.S. State Department lowered its travel advisory for El Salvador, citing a significant reduction in crime, it also warned that Bukele's emergency measures allow authorities to arrest anyone suspected of gang activity and suspends constitutional rights.
Hola. Juan Carlos, yo soy David.
Juan Carlos tells me he was wrongfully held for 5 months at a lower security prison earlier this year. He says the poor conditions led to an infection in his leg.
He said he was lumped in and assumed to be part of a gang, and he said in part because of how he looked. He had long hair, he said he had a long beard, and he says he has tattoos, but he points out that for him these are just artistic expressions. They have nothing to do with being part of a gang.
The Bukele administration has acknowledged that innocent people have been swept up in the crackdown, and they say more than 7,000 have already been released. They see it as collateral damage, and Juan Carlos, while frustrated with the tactics, believes under Bukele his country is safer.
Is this headquarters for you guys?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Bukele's security minister targets gangs with an academic-like approach.
I heard you have a book. Is it true?
Yeah.
And this is a book that has the markings of gang members?
All the marks.
The minister compiling his findings from his nearly 30 years in law enforcement to help interpret gang symbols.
Wow, these 3 dots that says signify 3 things to the gang members, that they have 3 destinations essentially: jail, hospital, or cemetery.
You know those 3 dots. You know that's what Ice Cube has on his face, right? You guys ever notice that? Ice Cube has those 3 dots that they're talking about. You ever notice that? I just realized that as they were saying it.
From his office, he monitors crime reports in real time.
So I just wanted to show that to you because that had the gentleman who was wrongly put into that facility because of his tattoos. Here's the thing, though, and there's another case of that as well in America. Venezuelan in Texas, here in Texas. He said he had these tattoos because they looked cool. His sister says it's why he was deported. So this is the tattoo that he had. He claimed, the 19-year-old, he claimed he was just seeking asylum, went to the U.S. Yeah, he had the tattoos, but he just thought it was a cool tattoo to have. But here's the thing, right? To that guy in Venezuela and to this guy who is in Texas or not in Texas anymore, people will say that their tattoos just look cool. If you're in a jail and you get a jail tattoo because you've joined a clique and they ask you what that tattoo is, you don't go, oh, well, I'm affiliated with this thing. You don't know the guys in here? We're all affiliated. You didn't realize. They don't do that. They say it's nothing. They say, oh, I just thought it was cool. He's just saying I thought it was cool. I have this tattoo, right? If I don't want to open up about my life and my experience with this and talk about how it changed my life and opened me up as a person, if I don't feel like doing all that, I just go, nah, it just looks cool. This looks really cool. Yeah, it's nothing. Yeah. That's what you do when you have tattoos and you don't want to talk about their real meaning. Maybe it's a deeper meaning that you want to get into. I have tattoos on my other arm that have deeper meanings that I don't usually get into at all. They're tributes to people and, my mother, really. I could tell you guys are cool, but you're not always honest, right? So when you're saying that, when you have Joe Rogan with that confusion of, what if the guy's just a tattoo artist? What, you mean an illegal alien who's working as a tattoo artist? Oh, well then he's committed a crime. It's not a violent crime. But he's committing a crime. He's working in the country he's not supposed to be working. He's illegal. He's an asylum seeker. This guy's an asylum seeker. How does he even have money to get tattoos? Tattoos cost money. This one cost $600 in Vegas. They jacked me. My friends were drunk. They got us, They milked us. But you know what I mean? It's the language of everything. So let me just jump. I've already showed you that. Let's jump over to Tom Homan, him talking about this whole situation as well.
Flights going overseas. Will the flights continue? Will these people go back?
Well, the Alien Enemies Act, we're going to let that play out in court. And I'm not an attorney, but DOJ's taking that out in court. But in the meantime, I've said, we're not going to stop arresting Venezuelan TDA members in this country. And if we can't remove them through Title 8, then we're going to detain them until this case is over with. But we're going to arrest them. We're going to take them off the streets. We're going to keep our promise. TDA has been verified as terrorist organizations. Them and MS-13. They're designated terrorist organizations. Those two flights carry terrorists out of this country. We're not going to apologize for it. We think we did the right thing. We followed the Aliens Enemies Act. The president simply invoked the authorities he has in a statute of federal law, and that's what we did. This administration is following the law. We're using the law to make this country safer, unlike the last administration, who not only ignored the law, Lawrence, they violated the law with misuse of parole. We're making this country safe again, one illegal alien at a time. We're going to keep doing it.
Tom, I know you've been doing this job over 30 years amongst Democrats and Republican presidents. There was a judge that talked about the treatment, and they said something that I think you're going to take great umbrage with. This is what the judge said. Watch.
The point here was that there were plane loads of people. I mean, it's a class action. There were plane loads of people. There were no procedures in place to notify people. Nazis got better treatment under the Alien Enemy Act than has happened.
Someone said activist judge. Is that what Trump said? Activist judges are afoot? Oh, I couldn't possibly understand what he meant by that.
And here.
Is that true, Tom?
No, we follow every procedure within the Aliens Enemy Act. Maybe she needs to read that act. We did the right thing. I'm not aware of every single case, but I've been told by highest levels in ICE that every one of those Venezuelans on that plane was TDA based on hours of investigations, anywhere from criminal investigations to wiretaps to witnesses' statement. They put a lot of effort in this, and I've been guaranteed that every one of those Venezuelans will member TDA. And again, they're a designated terrorist organization, and I'm sick of these radical judges. Why don't they talk to Laken Riley's family? What due process does she have? Talk to the other young women that were in this country by TDA members. Talk to the family of the young lady that was alive on a subway. We did the right thing. We're keeping President Trump's promise. We're going to arrest every one of these people. And again, we're not going to arrest every one of them is out of this country. This is what the President Trump promised American people. We're going to do this every day, 24/7 across this country without apology. We're going to keep doing what we're doing.
Yeah. Tom.
So that is the big thing, that this was promised. This is not a new thing. Trump said he was going to use this act 2 years ago. I was making videos about this a year and a half ago. I was talking about this act. I'm like, what's it going to look like? He was even talking about using the National Guard in Republican states and bringing that National Guard to Democrat states and having them remove all the illegals that way. There was a lot of talk about this the whole time. Mass deportations. He brought Tom Homan on board with him before he was even elected. Tom was talking about it. This has been something that was promised. This is one of the campaign promises. So again, going back to Joe's confusion, it's like, oh, well, what if that and what if that? That's what the people voted for. Quite honestly, they did. The people who want to see mass deportations, if they don't it sounds cold, but a lot of people don't care where the people go. They just want them out of the country. They just don't want to have to pay for their shelters. They don't want to have to pay for their food. They don't want to have to be subject to any crimes possibly. They don't want to have to possibly lose jobs. There's a black population that doesn't want to be replaced. This is what people voted for. But again, people are going back and forth on the whole thing, right? So you let me know. What do you think? Do you think Trump should be able to do this? This person's saying this is unconstitutional. Trump has every right to use his executive power to enact the Alien Enemies Act of 1798. This is common sense, and it will go to the Supreme Court, and Trump will win. These activist judges love criminals. Why is America riddled with crime right now? Yep. Now, somebody actually reached out to Grok. Funny enough, Grok, it's crazy that little AI engines are now in the conversation. Grok showing its wokeness. Elon Musk needs to really fix this type of thing. Grok says that the court's block on deporting gang members via the Aliens Enemy Act isn't about keeping violent illegals here. It's because the act only applies in wartime. The U.S. isn't at war with Venezuela. Plus, deportees got no due process, notice, or hearings, which violates rights. The ruling ensures legal procedures. Now, what post was this on that I grabbed this from? Oh, it was from this post. So basically, it was just in today that a D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals blocks the Trump administration from deporting gang members via the Alien Enemies Act of 1798. Now, that's what Grok says. Funny enough, Grok is saying that, right? We'll get back to that in a second. Then Doge AI, this is the one that Elon should be buying here. Doge AI knows what's up. This DC's decision to block deportations on the enemy's alien is a dangerous overreach. This 1798 law exists precisely to remove threats like criminal gang members who endanger American communities. The administration's use of it aligns with securing borders and protecting citizens, a core priority since day one. Exactly what I was saying. Courts weaponizing technicalities. Let me just go down here. Let me go up here so you guys can actually see it. To shield violent actors, undermine national security while cartels exploit weak enforcement. Every delay empowers gang traffickers and across the border. Real justice means upholding laws that keep Americans safe. Let me go ahead and follow Doge AI. Doge AI knows what's up. That's an instant follow for me. But here's the thing. We go back and forth. Can Trump actually do this, though? A lot of people, Doge AI, American flag in the background, all that. This person also seems very patriotic as well. You might say, hey, these people are biased. 100%. I'm willing to admit that. And I myself am biased. But I looked up the law. Okay? This Aliens Enemies Act. Can Trump actually enact this? Grok said it's only allowed in wartime. And that would make it so Trump is 100% wrong in what he's doing. But the mainstream media, for some reason Grok as well, is leaving out one simple thing. Under what conditions can the president invoke the Aliens Enemy Act? The president may invoke the act in times of declared war or when a foreign government threatens or undertakes an invasion, a predatory intrusion against U.S. territory. Now, we go on a little further. Now, you just think about that. Invasion, right? The Constitution gives Congress, not the president, the right to declare war. So the president must wait for the Democrat debate and congressional vote to invoke the act on a declared war. But the president, oh, you guys can't even see that. Let me make sure you guys can see that. Sorry. But I was like an attorney just now. But the president need not wait for Congress to invoke the law based on a threatened or ongoing invasion or predatory intrusion. The president has inherent authority to repel these kind of sudden attacks, an authority that necessarily implies the discretion to decide when an invasion or predatory intrusion is underway. And case in point, Trump is going to point to the last 4 years of the Biden administration. He's going to point to the flow of illegal immigrants. He's going to point to the fact that it's anywhere from 13 million to 20 million people who have come in. He's going to be able to point at Venezuela. He's going to be able to point at Mexico. And he doesn't have to go to war with them. He doesn't have to attack. He doesn't have to do anything. But it gives him the right to do exactly what he's doing. It gives him the right to remove these people any way he seems fit. So I just wanted to bring you guys all that. This is the part that Joe Rogan missed. He does not understand what this act is. And everybody's getting swept away with emotion, understandably so. You're seeing I showed you what that facility looks like. You don't want to just throw anybody into that, especially if they're innocent. But Trump is actually in the right in this one. And if it does go to the Supreme Court, which I think it might, if they're still putting up these roadblocks for President Trump and Tom Homan, I think Trump is going to win that. No problem. Anyways, guys, just wanted to bring you all that. Like, subscribe, turn on the notifications, follow me on Twitch, and other than that, I'm out.